Tonight, a Labour budget for the first time in 15 years.
I call the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Rachel Reeves is putting up the national minimum wage and increasing public spending. Businesses will bear the brunt of most tax rises. Also making the headlines, a health emergency. Campaigners say Scotland needs to take action as our unhealthy lifestyles mean we've the lowest life expectancy in Western Europe. In sport, a full fixture card in the Scottish Premiership.
I'm at Celtic Park, where the champions face Dundee.
Here at Pittodrie, Rangers take on Aberdeen.
And at Tynecastle, Hearts host Kilmarnock.
Hi there, I'm Jason Donovan here at the Pavilion with Laura Boyd talking about the Rocky Horror.
You after my job?
No.
I'm John Mackay. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Rachel Reeves says her first budget will rebuild Britain. She's filling a £40 billion black hole in public finances by raising taxes. Many of these taxes will directly hit businesses rather than workers. Amongst the changes that might affect you, the minimum wage is going up. Over 21s will get a 6.7% rise. 18 to 20-year-olds will see a 16% increase. Duty is being introduced on vaping for the first time. A small bottle of vape juice will cost £2.20 more in a couple of years because of that tax. There's cash to compensate people given infected blood transfusions by the NHS and for the wrongly prosecuted post office workers. We'll look at how the Chancellor's changes might affect Scottish Government spending plans shortly. First, our Westminster correspondent Paris Goutsianis and what it means for you.
Making history from the moment she stepped out the door. Rachel Reeves is the first woman to deliver a budget and the first Labour Chancellor to do so for nearly 15 years.
I call the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
The only way to drive economic growth is to invest, invest, invest. Today it falls to this Labour Party, to this Labour government, to rebuild Britain once again.
But this budget made history for other reasons too. The biggest tax rise in modern times. Rachel Reeves blamed it on the last Conservative government for losing control of the public finances. They didn't agree. Ordinary workers' pay slips have been protected. The biggest hit will be on employers' national insurance, raising £25 billion.
I know that this is a difficult choice. I do not take this decision lightly.
With so much bad news briefed before the budget, the only surprises were the taxes Rachel Reeves didn't raise, like fuel duty.
While the cost of living remains high, and with a backdrop of global uncertainty, increasing fuel duty next year would be the wrong choice for working people. I am cutting draft duty by 1.7%.
A good reason to say cheers,
which means a penny off the pints in the pub.
Unless you prefer wine or spirits. Tax is rising on those. And popping out for a vape will cost more too, with duty being levied on them for the first time. All that extra cash will be used to boost public services.
At the election, we promised there would be no return to austerity. Today, we deliver on that promise.
And the Scottish Government will get a record-breaking sum too. But small businesses are counting the cost, like this Edinburgh workshop that recycles old furniture.
I think particularly in the last few years, a lot of businesses are now significantly struggling, especially with the cost of living crisis, the increase in rent, the increase in utility bills, etc. A lot of businesses are on the breadline as it is. And if there's a significant increase in their biggest outgoing, which is staff costs, I think it could be make or break time for a lot of businesses.
But at this butcher's in Airdrie, a big increase in the minimum wage was welcomed.
Of course it's difficult, but do I want to see my staff paid more? Absolutely. They're positive, they're more positive, and so am I. It creates a better atmosphere and it helps them. And as you say, as a small business owner, you do care about your staff.
I'm a student and I work part-time, so trying to balance
work and doing it can be really difficult, especially when you're not getting like high wages. Like you're working yourself to the bone with uni work, and then all of a sudden you're trying to do the same with work. So that extra, even couple of pounds, makes such a difference.
Households back home in Scotland, people, pensioners, who've had their winter fuel allowance taken away, people living in poverty under the 2-child cap, small businesses, all of those people will be looking at this budget thinking, what have we done to deserve this on the Labour Party's watch? You can't simply invest while forgetting about the people that you should be helping the most.
These people in Glasgow welcomed some measures more than others.
For pubs, losing money won't be much, but penny doesn't make much of a difference to the public.
Pennies. I don't need pennies, I need pounds. And so do all these people that are my age that are not going to get the winter fuel allowance.
I get minimum wage right now for where I work, so getting more money is great. I'm a student, so getting money is great.
In Paris, the first Labour budget in 15 years. There's a lot riding in this.
There absolutely is, which is why it feels like we've been building up to this budget for so long. Rachel Reeves didn't want any surprises, particularly for the financial markets, who responded so badly to Liz Truss's budget. So we knew that this big tax rise was coming on inheritance tax, capital gains tax, on shares and second homes, but also for businesses in the shape of national insurance. And that's going to hit all but the very smallest businesses who have more than a handful of employees.
In Paris, we heard the Chancellor say that austerity is over. Has she delivered on that?
In a strict sense, yes, this will unlock a lot of money for investment in public services across the UK and in Scotland. But looking at the fine print, it's clear that public spending is going to remain squeezed and tight for years to come, and economic growth is going to be hard to come by. This may have been a historic budget, but it didn't consign hard times to history.
Paris and Westminster, thank you. Let's move from Westminster to Holyrood now, and Colin Mackay joins us. So Colin, what does the budget mean for Scotland?
Well, for the Scottish Government, it means more money to spend on public services, an extra £1.5 billion this year, although they say most of that's already taken up for in extra public sector pay deals. Next year it means an extra £3.4 billion, taking the total block grant from Westminster to Holyrood to £47.7 billion. That's the biggest it's ever been. And it's a significant increase in the funding for public services. But what's most interesting to me today is that the Scottish Government is no longer talking about austerity.
It's certainly a step in the right direction, but one budget doesn't address 14 years of austerity, £15 billion taken out of public services since 2021. That's going to take a number of years to address, but it is a step in the right direction. Where we're more disappointed would be on things like not reversing the 2-child limit, on not reversing the winter fuel payment, and of course there's nothing on the Acorn carbon capture project.
This is a budget that delivers on the promises made in the election, ends the era of austerity, provides vital new investment for our public services and prioritises economic growth. And all of this has only been possible because people in Scotland voted for a UK Labour government so we could turn the page on 14 years of Tory chaos, division and decline.
Now, most budgets get a mixed reaction. Today's is no different from that. You've got businesses saying that increasing costs in terms of national insurance, minimum wage rises, well, then some of them are saying it's picking the pockets of businesses. But then on the other side of that, it's a big pay rise for those who are on the minimum wage. The Chancellor says that's putting money back in the pockets of working people. Now, we'll get the Scottish Government's budget next in December, but the STUC today said that the Westminster blame game is over. The Scottish Government has the money, it has the power, it now has to deliver the services.
Colin at Holyrood, thank you. To other news now, and Scotland is in the grip of a health emergency with the lowest life expectancy in Western Europe. A new report says a radical rethink is needed to turn around Scotland's declining health. Diseases such as cancer, diabetes and heart disease are responsible for the majority of deaths, but experts say they can be avoided. Here's our political reporter, Laura Alderman.
Steph was 13 when he had his first drink. As an adult, his life revolved around alcohol, but when he tried to give it up, he ended up in hospital.
On the Friday, I started feeling ill, thought I was having a heart attack. The doctor's asking me about my drinking. I said, well, I maybe went a wee bit too far at the weekend. I asked him why he was asking that, and he said that I was in alcohol withdrawal. And it was pretty serious, and I really got a fright. and I've never touched alcohol since. Because it was hurting me.
Steph is now sober and helps people in recovery, but he says tighter rules are needed around the way alcohol is advertised.
Temptation, it's a fleeting thought for me, but people that aren't as stable in their recovery, or people that are new in recovery, people that are young and want to investigate alcohol and what does this do to me and how does that taste, it's pretty powerful and pretty damaging as well.
The majority of deaths in Scotland are caused by non-communicable diseases such as cancer, diabetes and heart disease. They're all linked to alcohol, tobacco and junk food consumption. Today in Edinburgh, a group of leading health organisations outlined their vision to tackle this declining state of health.
We're currently in the grips of an alcohol crisis in Scotland. 1 in 5 of all deaths from non-communicable diseases would be preventable if we were to implement tougher restrictions around marketing, availability and the price of some of these health-harming products.
Ewan is 19 and has been exposed to smoking and alcohol since he was at high school.
Support systems like mental health services are really difficult to access at the moment, and I've seen young people who can't access these services who are instead turning to things like alcohol or vaping, turning to this addiction instead of being able to access this support because they feel that's the thing that comforts them. I've seen in schools where young people are talking about vapes as a comfort device because they can't get access to supports or because they're stressed.
The Scottish Government says a healthy life expectancy and reducing health inequalities remains a clear ambition for this government. But for people like Steph on the sharp end of this health crisis, it's not happening fast enough to save lives. Laura Alderman, STV News, Edinburgh.
Police are hunting 3 people after a man was shot at in an attempted murder at a shop in Glasgow. Officers were called to Drummoyne Road in Govan on Friday night. A 52-year-old man was injured in what officers are treating as a targeted incident. A man has appeared in court following a controlled explosion in a suspect item in Clydebank. Chris Gates made no plea and was remanded in custody after being charged with illegally possessing ammunition. A 7-year-old girl was taken to hospital after being attacked by a dog in Glasgow's East End. The child was bitten on Mockenfall Road near Toll Cross around 3 o'clock this afternoon. A Scottish ophthalmologist who volunteered on a mission to restore the sight of children in Africa says it's a privilege to carry out the work. Dr Tim Lavey was one of the surgeons on the Mercy Ship's mission to Sierra Leone earlier this year, carrying out operations in a floating hospital. Ollie Dickinson reports.
After a lifetime of darkness, as the bandages are taken away, little 7-year-old Mamadou finally sees his mother's face for the first time. One of the doctors at his bedside is Scottish ophthalmologist Tim Lavey, a volunteer working on board Mercy Ships, the project that gave Mamadou his sight back. They're specialist floating hospitals that travel Africa with state-of-the-art operating theatres and a dedicated surgical team.
The pictures of Mamadou are very heartwarming, aren't they? Where when you see that, you see the expression on his face when the patches come off, and he's sort of bewildered at first, and then he's delighted. And then he just wants to start getting involved in this world that he knows has been there all this time, but he's never been able to make it out.
Mamadou was born almost blind, with cataracts in both eyes. His vision was so hazy, all he could see was shadow and light.
He is quiet and lovely. He likes people a lot. He is a good boy.
He goes to school, but he can't see or write clearly because of his condition. Whenever I look at my son, I feel sad.
Had he been born in Scotland, Mamadou's sight would have been corrected at birth in a quick and painless operation. Dr Lavey says volunteering in Africa on surgeries like this is incredibly rewarding.
A hospital ship in Sierra Leone doesn't come cheap. And so these are not cheap operations. Obviously, it can transform individuals' lives, and they themselves, for them, that's priceless. But it's doing something, and we can't solve all the problems in the world. We can't solve world poverty or inequality, but we can at least do something.
Mamadou can now have a normal childhood, playing and running around with his friends. He's going to school, learning to read and write, all with a smile on his face. Ollie Dickinson, STV News.
Time for the sport, and it's a big night in the Scottish Premiership. Rahman is at Celtic Park.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
A very good evening from Celtic Park. Yes, it's a full fixture card in the Premiership here at Celtic Park. The league leaders and champion Celtic face Dundee. We'll look ahead to this one shortly, but first we could be in for a cracker at Pittodrie, where Rangers face Aberdeen. Chris Harvey is there for us.
Yes, Rahman, Rangers and Aberdeen games here at Pittodrie can often be fiery fixtures. And tonight's game takes on even more significance given the position of the two clubs in the Premiership. The Dons, well, they're in rich vein of form. They're joint on points with Celtic at the top, only behind the champions on goal difference. And they have the chance to go 9 clear of Rangers with a win here tonight. Well, as for Philippe Clement's side, after an inconsistent start to the season, they can ill afford to fall further behind in the title race. Well, they secured a narrow win over St Mirren at the weekend, and the Ibrox boss admits his players will need to up their level if they're to get a positive result here tonight.
It's a really big test. I think it's one of the biggest that you can have in this league, to go to Aberdeen now. So yeah, it's a really good challenge. All the team has confidence to go there, to get a good result, but also a lot of respect towards Aberdeen, what they've been doing in this beginning of the season, and how they have played and how they took their points. So it's going to be a huge battle.
I understand the rivalry is there, and that's a history thing, like it is what it is, but we have to focus on now and try to be supportive to our players and make a good performance. I don't think about the table in that way or how many points, etc. For me, so the most important is the performance for ourselves in this game, and that's the only thing that we focus on.
Well, in terms of team news, for Rangers, John Souttar and Tom Lawrence have been past fit, and Yanis Hadji returns to the squad after serving a 2-match suspension. And for Aberdeen, only Kevin Nisbet is a doubt with a calf injury. It's a sellout here, and we are expecting a classic.
Well, here at Celtic Park, Brendan Rodgers' side are aiming to continue their good form when they take on Dundee. Luke McCowan, who scored in Celtic's win over Motherwell at the weekend, is set to face his former club for the first time, that after making the switch to the champions in August. In contrast, Dundee aren't in good form. They've dropped to 8th in the Premiership and have only won 1 out of the last 8 games. Let's hear from both managers.
I'm so pleased with how the team has been playing, how we've been functioning, how we've been working, and for us it's about us focusing on Celtic getting 3 points, playing the football, entertaining our supporters, because that's ultimately what we can control. Tony's good experience in the game. I think how he's managed his club has been fantastic. You'll go through spells in this league, where you maybe don't get the run of games. But for us, I always think it's a dangerous moment for a team, because you're always there looking for that big performance.
We know the opponent we're facing, but what it does for us is it means that we need to be really on point in terms of our in possession and out of possession actions, and the game demands a real level of concentration from players individually, but as a team, for the duration of the match. So, no, we're under no illusion. We've got a game plan, and we plan to get down there and try and execute that.
Well, Adam Ida is a doubt for Celtic after sustaining an injury in the win over Motherwell at the weekend, while goalkeeper Trevor Carson misses out for Dundee. Kick-off here is at 7:45. Now to the capital, where Hearts face Kilmarnock at Tynecastle. Lewis Mickey is there for us. Lewis.
Thanks very much, Rahman. Neil Critchley will be looking to continue his good form since he took over here at Tynecastle. They're undefeated in 3 games and come off the back of Sunday's derby draw away at Hibs. Meanwhile, for Kilmarnock, Derek McInnes will be looking for a response from his players after defeat to Ross County at the weekend.
Kilmarnock will be a tough test, and if we're not there, if we're not ready after the derby game, then it's already going to be a tough test. It'll become an even tougher test. So we have to be there physically and mentally ready for a really tough, important game.
We've got a decent record there, we've got a decent record against Hearts over the piece, and we've got to try and go and make it as difficult as possible and try and get the result for ourselves, because regardless of who's in the dugout, regardless what system Hearts play and changes, I'm just looking for us to be the commander team that we were for an hour on Saturday and try to get a 90-minute performance that will give us a chance to win the game.
Midfielder Benny Beningame could be back for Hearts. He's missed the last 2 games through illness. For Killie, Stuart Findlay is out with an injury. Meanwhile, midfielder Liam Donnelly is suspended after he was sent off against Ross County on Saturday. But glad to say it's looking like a fine night for football here in Edinburgh.
Lewis at Tynecastle, thanks very much for that. Well, here are all of the Premiership fixtures tonight. Hibs are in Dingwall to face Ross County. St Mirren host St Johnstone, and Motherwell take on Dundee United at Tannadice. Now, after Scotland's women's side defeated Hungary 4-0 at Easter Road last night to set up a winner-takes-all tie against Finland for a place at next summer's Euros, striker Martha Thomas says it would mean everything to the squad if they were to qualify for the tournament.
It would mean the world. I think the last 2 campaigns have just been so disappointing, you know, the last Euros and then the World Cup even more so, not to get over the line to get us there. You know, we've got such a talented team that we deserve to be at major tournaments, so I think, you know, a lot of us feel that, and a lot of the same squad from those 2 tournaments, so we've got a lot of, you know, fuel that we want to take into getting into the Euros.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
And that, folks, is all of your sport live from Celtic Park on a big night in the Scottish Premiership. We'll have the best of the action on tomorrow night's programme, and we'll have reaction across our platforms.
You were hoping the sprinklers were going to get them as well, didn't you? Anyway, Sean, how's the weather?
Light winds rolling in from the west. We'll be joined by some very welcomed ice creams. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Very good evening to you. A lot of cloud around today, especially across northwestern parts of the country. Lots of sunshine though further east. Plenty of sunshine earlier on today across lights of Stirlingshire, but fair amount of cloud around through this evening and tonight. Still some light drizzly showers across parts of Argyll and Bute and also the Highlands, but staying mild. Temperatures about 10 or 11 degrees Celsius. Now tomorrow the weather's looking quite damp throughout much of the day across northwestern areas. A lot of cloud across Ayrshire, Glasgow, Lanarkshire, but hopefully largely dry, apart from a little bit of drizzle potentially here. But the wettest conditions across northwestern areas, and again the cloud will break at times to give us some brighter spells across eastern parts, but for most of us largely cloudy day, damp day, and say for the northwest 12, 13 degrees, mild. Of course it is Halloween, so you might be heading out guising. So what's in store tomorrow evening? Well, witches, keep the hairdryer handy on Friday morning, because that cat might be a little bit soggy when you come in on Friday morning. It is going to stay quite damp across northwestern parts. Some shout outbreaks of rain across Inverclyde, again quite light and patchy here, drier but still rather cloudy across lights of Lanarkshire, Ayrshire and also Glasgow. And for Wales, looking for a full moon, no such luck this Halloween. It's a new moon on Friday. A lot of dry, bright weather for us on Friday, a little bit of drizzle across the eastern parts, the weather remaining quiet through the weekend with just a few drizzly showers. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And finally, Jason Donovan is getting ready to put on his stilettos and strut his stuff on stage at Glasgow's Pavilion Theatre this week as the Rocky Horror Picture Show comes to town, before heading to Edinburgh in January. The singer and actor joined our entertainment reporter Laura Boyd to chat about returning to the much-loved musical and the times he's enjoyed here in Scotland.
Jason here in Glasgow's iconic Pavilion Theatre, bringing the Rocky Horror Show to the stage. Tell us what it's about.
I mean, it's a great show. You know, I get to be a rock star every night. I put on the high heels, and I think it's, you know, fantastic to be here in Scotland over over Halloween, you know, at the pavilion. I mean, what a joy that is.
And the audience love this show, like I have never seen. They get so involved. What's it like looking out and seeing that audience interaction?
When you have a good audience with Rocky Horror and they're right behind you, the payoff at the end is fantastic. I mean, I did the 25th anniversary of this show, and we're sort of on the 50th. I don't see myself doing the 75th.
You never know.
No, but it's a wonderful celebration of being different.
How are the Scottish audiences, heckles and joining in? How does
The
that...
Scottish have been amazing. I mean, they're always got a lot of energy. They're normally fueled by a couple of drinks too. People love to have a good time. I think they were massive Neighbours fans in the day. I mean, I can't really get away with being sort of discreet, you know, walking through the centre of Glasgow. But yeah, the heart and the warmth of the Scottish people has always made me feel like this is a second home in a way.
And you're coming back to us next year with your own show.
Doing Fine 2025, my live shows, a sort of a celebration of 35 years of live work. There'll be hits, there'll be a lot of chats. You know, I asked my daughter Molly the other day, I said, you know, Dad's doing this tour next year, do you fancy, you know, coming along? And she said, Dad, I'm not a fan.
Oh, she did not.
She's 13, but she's a fan. She's a fan when she wants tickets to Sabrina Carpenter, you see. So, yeah, we're excited about that show as well.
Well, she might not be there, but we will be, Jason.
Right.
But first of all, Rocky Horror, Halloween, it just feels perfect. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy your time in Scotland.
So the stage show is the Rocky Horror Show, the film is the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I think that's clear. Anyway, from all of us here, thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.